people who are more influential see it and make it more amplified. If you can, if you have access, reach out to these advocacy media channels, reach out to individuals, as I said, like Mbelu, reach out to people who are more influential, and make sure you drive this home. On the question of how not to be targeted on, try as much as possible to not operate in an individualistic manner. When you're submitting a letter, don't go alone. Have a friend or a group of friends tag along to go together. Make sure those people know there is someone who knows you have come, and there is someone who knows you have left, and there is someone who will make sure you are going home. Especially if you are known for advocacy, make sure there are always people who have their eyes on you. Now, whenever an attack or any harassment is met on you, that there are people who know and there are people who will have the public know of such information. Always stay safe, stay active, and I wish us all the best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You almost answered all the questions. Okay, anyway, we still have some certain questions, like question number 2. I put it that way. How can we, how to get a public document without embarrassment from the public officers? You see, at any times, we are trying to look at a way that you will do it safely. When you look at the provision of Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution, it provides freedom of association. And when you look at the Section 18, 1920 of the Company and Allied Matters Act, in conjunction with Section 800 and 804, it recognizes the incorporation of companies, it recognizes the incorporation of association. Try to get this, because if you incorporate a company or you now register your association with the CAC or any lawful organization, you have now legal entity, you have legal capacity. You can sue and be sued in the capacity of that particular organization you register. Don't go individual, because we should try to distinguish between Mbelo, who is living in China, and you that is living in Nigeria. You understand? Mbelo can do ABC and scot-free. But here in Nigeria, that you are residing in Nigeria, you can be easily tracked. And before you know, today our government used so many nomenclature. For instance, if somebody tried to commit a crime, they can send a person to come and torture, kill, and then you see in the media, Mr. A was killed by unknown government. And that is all. You understand? So when you register a company or you register association, and then you have your aim and objectives, whatever you are going to achieve it through the association name. And then you can now link up with the media. For instance, like Watan Haki Association of Northern Nigeria. You understand? You can now apply the question for any support document, because you have your legal entity. It is not you as an individual. And whatever happens, you will not be tagged. You understand? And whatever, for instance, we have Sahara Reporter. We can see so many reports from Sahara. And who are Sahara? They are individuals, but registered in a corporation. That is good, very good. So that if we can register an association and achieve whatever we can to achieve through the association. And that association has trustees, it has members, it has all these things. And it has even patron. And patron are those big people in your community. So that the government may be even afraid of touching that association. Instead you think that by virtue of the Freedom of Information Act, I myself can go to the office, bang the door, ask for this document. You can be embarrassed, you can be harassed. And before you know, they will now point it to different things. And when we look at our penal code laws, you understand, we have certain prohibitions. For instance, it prohibits unlawful assembly. It prohibits riots. We have riot act. You understand? When the matter is taken to the police, they will now change it to different things. That you are not association, you will be charged for unlawful assembly before the government house, before the local government secretariat. You understand? You will be charged for attempting to cause havoc, something like this. But in the name of the association, you are well known as an association, you are registered, whatever you are going to do, you do it with the media team, and you'll be supported. That is question number 2. And then question number 4 says that freedom of speech, whether it's realistic today. Well, we have difference between theory and practice. In theory, when somebody was asking of the local government autonomy, I say local government have their autonomy because if Supreme Court give a judgment, that judgment is final. And the power of the court is to interpret a law. So sometimes courts can interpret a law that may be a little bit different from the context of the statute. And the decision of the court remains as it is. Now the Supreme Court said that the local government is recognized as third arm of the government and it has been given autonomy. Nobody can say no. The problem is now when it comes to implementation, the governors are resisting. For instance, let me give you examples. By virtue of Section 1 of the Land Use Act, all land in Nigeria belongs to the states. And Section 21 and 22 of the Land Use Act says that nobody can alienate his land without the consent of the governor. Then Section 28 says that governor has the power to revoke your CFO. Now, there is an issue in the Dutse Alhaji Abuja, and the matter was taken to the court. The question for determination was that whether an individual can alienate his land without approval of the governor. Now, Supreme Court said yes. Transaction of land between two individuals that has no overriding public interest, it requires no governor consent. And today it's a law. If you want to buy your land, you don't need to go and get the consent of the governor. Why? Because you have Supreme Court decision which overshadow the text of the law. So it is important to know all these things. So when you have all these things, you are entitled to freedom of expression. But I said it earlier that be careful where the freedom of expression and the offense of sedition starts. And there is no yardstick to distinguish between offense of sedition, libel, defamation, and freedom of expression. And people can change you differently. You are trying to exercise your right and you go beyond the limits. So freedom of expression is today realistic, of course. That is why we have so many programs in the media, social media, and they are saying whatever they say. And they don't do it. Why? Because they are legal entity. But if you alone try to do it, they may set up against you and catch you. And another question, she sent her question on section 14 to 18, which I say directive principle and fundamental objectives. I don't know if she can repeat the question. As he was saying that we say that the government shall provide education, the government shall do A, B, C, D. What was the question? And then, who asked the question? Yes, you say that what are you saying? That it is, why not say right word?
Yes, I was talking about the fact that if the context say that the education is the duty of the government, why is it that we are not having free and fair election in our country?
Free and fair election?
Yes.
Okay, not education, election.
Sorry, education, sorry.
Okay,
education.
okay. See, like I say it when I was asked the question, that there is difference between directive principle and fundamental objectives as well as the fundamental human rights. Fundamental human rights are rights exercisable by you, but directive principles are not rights, are privilege. When you see section 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, even 22, 24, that government shall provide science education free of charge. Government shall, you can use, look at the place you shall, you all shall put determination, emphasis. But if you go to court, they will tell you that this is what government is expected to do. So if the government could not achieve it, you cannot sue government for not achieving it. Government shall, but when you look at the provision of section 14 of the Constitution, that the primary portion of the democracy today is to provide security and welfare of the people. You understand? And do we have it today? Hardly even impossible. So we still have freedom of expression, but the way people are exercising it differs. Some may comply with the provision of the law, while others do not. And those who go beyond the limit, you see them in court. You see them at the police station, charging for libel, sedition, defamation, and so on and so forth, even character assassination. So they are still realistic in theory and practice. And somebody asked a question, what are the common errors used in activism? Have I captured the question?
I think it was asked by Nura.
Okay.
By Nura.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned,
Challenges, challenges.
okay, as far as I'm concerned, you see why I'm always putting more emphasis to register association. And we even make it mandatory in council. Any association that has to register with no affairs. Why? Because if you register, you have your constitution. And the constitution is your guiding principle. You are operating within the ambit of your laws. Whatever you do, it can be traced in your constitution as an association. So nobody will challenge you because the constitution has been approved and you are operating within the ambit. But if you and I just decided that I think we have the right to go and get the document, let's go now. Before you know, they will change it. In fact, they can even tag you as suspected kidnappers. And you are an individual, you're not association. How will you be able to, instead of you get what you want, you end up defending yourself? That you are lying, I'm not a kidnapper, I just want to get some document. Before you answer, they will ask you to go to the police station and explain. And social media are contributing drastically on the changing of the fact and distorting the matter sometimes. You understand? When the police change A to B, before you know, social media, it will para. And this is another issue. So youth actually should engage in association and should always outline their modalities of operation and try at any time to operate within the ambit of law. And they should consult an expert, lawyers, and those who are in better position to guide them. That is why sometimes most of the association will have legal advisors that, okay, go and do A, B, C, D. And nobody will challenge you, nobody will beg you. And the next question, somebody asked a question, how can we ensure that the law is not biased? What do you mean by bias? Selective. You know, there is difference between theory and practice. When you come to law, you look at our constitution. The document are sanctity document. We don't have problem with our constitution. Though we may have some way, but 99% of the constitution are intact. But when it comes to the practice, you see entirely different things. Because when you look at the principle of law, it means two things. Number one, equality before the law. It is there in written. Treat equal, treat unequal. That is number one. Then number two, we have principle of fair trial, fair hearing. We call it a law doing maxim. Sorry, Nemo Judice Ecos Assure and Audi Altrim Patel. It's a Latin that a judge will not be a party in his own case, and a judge must hear both sides. So these principles are there, enshrined under Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution, that whatever happens, there must be justice. But the problem is that, sometimes you are trying to exercise your right, so many things happen. Let me give you an example. Section 37, you have right to privacy. Section 40 says you have freedom of association. Section 41 says you have freedom of movement, right? Section 39 says you have freedom of expression and speech. But these particular provisions are not absolute. They are subject to the provision of Section 46. They are not absolute. Okay, I have the freedom of movement under Section 41 of the 1999 Constitution. And I am driving my car, and a castellar or somebody asks me to stop. And I hit him. Your right freedom of association has been suspended because it's a law enforcement agent. I want to say anything I want to say, and I commit the offense of sedition. You will be charged for offense that you committed. You have a right to personal liberty under Section 35. But at the same time, a person committed an offense and he has been detained. Can you say that he was unlawfully detained? Or Section 33 says that you have right to life. And the court sentenced Mr. A to die. Can you appeal against the sentence because you are entitled to right to life? In the case of Swabia versus student Jigar at Zamfara State, when a woman was cited, conceived, having carried knowledge of somebody, and she has no husband, Sharia law at present, Zamfara State Higher Court convicted her for death, and they appealed against the conviction. on the ground that Section 30 says she has right to life. Before the appeal, they now quickly took her, take her to Rome, give her an indication of Rome. And when we appeal, they say she's no longer Nigerian. So the Nigerian last jurisdiction to determine the case. And that's how the case ends. That's one of the activists for human rights. So actually we have all this thing. And what question again? Somebody asked of CAD PPA, how do you ensure, okay, he cited the example of CAD PPA. Sometimes in law, when you look at section 4, 5, 6 of the 1999 Constitution, section 4 established legislature, 5 executive, and 6 judiciary. This is basically where we expect check and balances. Judiciary interpret the law, executive administer the law, and the legislature enact the law applicable to the nation. The essence is for check and balance. But in practice, this thing is not working. In practice, this thing is not working. Today in Kaduna State, judiciary are under the executive arm of government. They are no longer independent. And this is a provision of the Constitution that they should be independent. Based on the NUC, CASU should not be under the head of service. And today we are. So that's where the problem are. Our salary at least paid by the head of service, right? Something like this. Of course. Yes.
When you're supposed to be independent.
Yes, we're supposed to have our autonomy.
Yeah.
Based on the NUC regulation, we should have our autonomy. But in practice, it is impossible. So sometimes they say it is unwise to argue with your boss much. If you cannot fight them, they say join them. That is where we have a problem. Can PPA one time come to council that, sorry, we are talking of the local government, just maybe by way of example, that we are going to auction our property here, abandon some properties, and they say we should not do it. Why? Because PPA was established by Kaduna State law, and law allowed them to go and make all these auctions. And I put the Vice Chancellor, I think no. When you look at our section 5 of the Kaduna State University law, we are empowered to dispose both our tangible and intangible property. And Kaduna State law was enacted by the House Assembly. Same PPA was enacted by the House Assembly. Now the issue of doctrine of implied power on acquiring the field come in. And now in this case, when two laws are incomplete enacted by the state, which one prevail? Then we apply equity. When two equities are equal, first in time prevail. And council was established in 2004, while at PPA in 2017. And how can you allow us that we should not do this thing because of our law, which is our law, that our law supersedes our own? So we have this particular criteria. And at the local government level, at local government level, it is important at any time when we are trying to request a document, try to observe the due process. Because these politicians today, like, they are trying to take so many things as a do or die affairs. They can use their last kobo to see they get what they want to get. And my worry is that when you look at the provision of section 174 of the 1999 Constitution, as well as section 222 of the 1999 Constitution, the Attorney General of the Federation and the state were empowered to enter what we call nolli prosecute. That AG of the state, when you institute a criminal proceeding against anybody, the AG has the power to discontinue the case. Today, we see Tinubu has granted some certain pardons, including Mariam Sanda. She was not free. She was sentenced to death, right? Yes. And she has now been free. Because even if you sentence somebody to death, you cannot execute it until the governor or the president sign a warrant order. And they didn't sign. What are you going to do? And most of them have been released. Some of them are drug pushers, some of them commit several offenses. And they are now coming back to community. And what do you expect? What do you expect? You think that they will fight this government? They won't fight this government. And don't you think that the government may, I don't know, even use them for different purposes? That's a challenge. So we should at all times try to comply with the provision of the law when it comes to practice, so that we will be at the safer side. Is there any question I didn't answer?
I think we've covered, I think naturally
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, please. I think we can do better. We'll still have our refreshments. So, guys, thank you very much, Engineer, for sharing those insights and also attempting the question. Thank you, Barrister, for clarifying the law for us. Understand as much as we are energetic and as much as we have our emotions as to wanting to have or engage these people, there are certain things that we just have to procedures that we have to follow. I understand that, but at the same time, it's good to we have clarity of the process so that we don't go and expose the ignorance towards this process. So I think it's very important and appreciating the fact that you keep citing the constitution, so we know we are backed by this, and at the same time, the theory is different from practical. It sounds very good on paper, but then when it comes to implementation, and I guess I must have. But thank you very much for your insights. I think at this point we come to the end of the panel, and we're going to have a good picture, Engineer and Barrister. And after that, we're going to have 20 to 30 minutes prayer and a talking break. And then when we come back, we're going to have our refreshment. And then we have, when you look at the back of your churches, you're going to see there's a commitment there that we're going to read as civic citizens, and then we continue from there to the end of the program. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for your questions. At this point, we're going to have our good picture. Mohammed, ready?